Welcome to the Money Talks Simple podcast, the show that breaks down money, wealth, and the world simply. I'm your host, Josh.
And I'm Nora. So, Josh, you hear it all the time, right? This big, scary headline, the American middle class is shrinking. It's everywhere.
Constantly. And it sounds terrible. It paints this picture of economic collapse. The American dream is dying. Families are falling into poverty. It's a really bleak narrative. Always the doom and gloomer, Nora. But what if I told you the main reason the middle class is shrinking is actually good news?
Wait, what? How is that even possible? That sounds completely backward.
I know. But stick with me, because today we're talking about why the middle class is shrinking because more people are getting rich.
Okay, you have my full attention. Explain this, Josh.
All right. So the core idea is that the middle isn't just emptying out into the lower class. That's what we all assume. But a huge chunk of that shrinking middle is actually people moving up into the upper middle class and the upper class.
So it's not a collapse, it's an ascent.
It's a total perception shift. Think of it like a 3-lane highway. For years, we've pictured the middle lane emptying out because everyone's breaking down and pulling over into the slow lane.
Right, that's the image I have in my head.
But what's really happening is that a ton of those cars are actually accelerating and moving into the fast lane. The middle lane is getting emptier, sure, but the fast lane is getting way more crowded.
Wow, okay, break it down for us, you big data nerd. How much of a shift are we actually talking about here?
Okay, so if you look at the data from, say, 1971 to today, the share of American adults in the middle income tier has dropped from about 61% to around 50%.
Okay, so an 11-point drop. That's the scary number everyone quotes.
That's the one. But here's the kicker. Where did they go? Over that same period, the share of adults in the lower income tier actually went down slightly, from 25 to 29%. Not a huge change. But the upper income tier, it grew from 14 to 21%.
So wait, let me get this straight. The lower class stayed about the same size, but the upper class grew significantly?
Exactly. The net result of the shrinking middle has been more upward mobility than downward. The group of people we'd call upper middle class or wealthy has gotten much larger.
Okay, so what's driving this? Why are so many people moving up? It doesn't really feel that way sometimes, you know?
Well, it's a few big things working together over decades. First, and this is a big one, is education. The number of people with a bachelor's degree or higher has skyrocketed since the 70s, and that's still one of the most reliable paths to a higher income.
That makes sense. More education, better jobs.
Then there's the rise of dual income households. Back then, the single breadwinner model was much more common. Now it's pretty standard for both partners in a relationship to work full-time.
Right. 2 solid incomes can easily push a household budget from middle to upper middle, especially if they're in professional fields.
Totally. And finally, the economy itself has changed. Think about the growth of high-skill, high-wage industries like technology, finance, professional services, advanced healthcare. These sectors just create a lot more high-paying jobs than the economy of the 1970s did.
So if this is all true, why is the narrative always so negative? Why does everyone get this so wrong?
I think it's because the headline, "The Middle Class is Shrinking," is just really simple, and it taps into a genuine economic anxiety that people feel.
Yeah, it confirms a bias. It feels like things are getting harder, the cost of living is insane, so when you hear the middle class is shrinking, you automatically assume the worst.
Exactly. And the more complex, nuanced truth just isn't as catchy. It's not a great soundbite to say the middle class is shrinking, but mostly because a lot of people are doing better.
Yeah, that doesn't quite have the same ring to it. But okay, we have to add the nuance here because this positive story isn't the reality for everyone. That's the critical part, right?
100%. We have to be super clear. This does not mean everything is perfect or that poverty isn't the real problem. For the people who have been left behind or who have fallen out of the middle class, the struggle is incredibly real.
And in some ways, it's even harder for them now. The cost of the big 3, housing, healthcare, and education, has gone through the roof. So if you're not on that upward track, you're getting squeezed even harder.
That's the perfect way to put it. We have this dual story. It's a story of both incredible progress and increasing polarization at the same time. Both things can be true.
So, the main takeaway is that when we hear the middle class is shrinking, our first question shouldn't be, oh no, are we all getting poorer? It should be, where are they going?
Right. And the data shows that, for the most part, the story of the last 50 years is one of a massive number of American families moving into a more prosperous life. It's an optimistic story, really.
It really is. A more complicated, but ultimately more optimistic story than the one we usually tell ourselves, but one that still has to account for the people being left out of that progress.
Well put. And that's all the time we have for today.
Thanks for tuning in. Join us next time as we unpack another idea you think you know. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe so you don't miss what's next.